Well, welcome. This is the June 29th, the last June meetup of the PCR NMRA Coast Division. So very quickly, announcements. I just really don't have a lot of announcements. Obviously, the convention is coming up next week or next month actually month after next in August in Southern California. If people are interested in going, there are still some tickets available. Probably can get a carpool to go down, etc. I did want to talk just briefly about the board meeting on Monday. We are going to have a board meeting tomorrow at 7 or Monday at 7:30 on Zoom. It's really open to everyone. It's not really any sort of a closed backdoor meeting. And especially would like to, if folks are interested in getting involved, there are always roles and opportunities to get involved and do things from, taking over responsibility for an area to focusing on doing some events. One event I did want to talk about actually very quickly is I'm looking at a date for going to the California Railroad Museum, and the NMRA is actually going to have a dedication ceremony on the 31st. Unfortunately, right after the 31st is the beginning of the convention. So what I'm thinking is the Saturday before that, and I'm having a heck of a time getting my calendar to come up here because it wasn't up. But whatever the Saturday is in July, right before the 31st of July, and do that as a CSRM visit. We would have a tour of the exhibit, and basically go up on the train in the morning. Probably identify one of the early Capital Corridor trains gets there. I think there's one that gets there about 10:30 or 11. Then have a tour of the exhibit at noon and be able to spend the rest of the day in the CSRM. And then if you want to, you can head back in the early afternoon or stay and have dinner in Old Sacramento. I don't know. Does that sound like something folks would be interested in doing?
Yes.
So we'll go ahead and set that up. Like I said, I can't get my calendar up here real quickly, but
Absolutely.
it's the Saturday before July 31st, because the problem the Saturday after is the beginning of the convention. And I got Charlie's going to come and do the tour, obviously. It's great to have Charlie do it. He did it once before and it was brilliant. And so he's not available after the convention. So seemed like that was the right day there, the Saturday before. So unless something comes up, I will plan on starting to set that up so you can go ahead and mark your calendars.
Phil,
Um,
it,
yes.
Phil, it might be interesting to a lot of people to actually be there on the 31st and get a chance to meet some of the
Uh,
NMRA national board members.
oh, absolutely. The challenge with the 31st is if you'd like to come up on the 31st, I'm going to go up. I don't know who else. I know I'm pretty sure Frank is going up. I don't know who else is going up. If you're interested in going up on the 31st, we can set up a trip on the 31st. The problem on the 31st is it's basically a fairly orchestrated day of some things in the morning and a dedication in the afternoon. So, kind of the opportunity to have that tour and do some of those things is a little different on the 31st, but more than welcome to come up on the 31st as well. I'm also, by the way, talking to Paul Weiss. There is a the Red has a annual picnic, and this year they're going to the Western States Museum, the Trolley Museum up on the other side of the Delta. And I have not been yet able to get the date from them. I think that's going to come up sometime in July, hopefully in July. And when it happens, I'll get that date out, and we're going to be able to tag along with them, and it'll be a sponsored lunch, etc. So that'll be a nice event if you want to do it. Um, the other thing that we've talked about, and Bob and I have had a long discussion about this, is getting the Coast Dispatcher going again. Quite frankly, kind of just a lack of resource availability right after COVID. We haven't done a Coast Dispatcher in a couple of years, actually going on 3 years now. Would really like to get that going. We've got some ideas about how to get it going. We're going to discuss that at the board meeting on Monday. It really would be great if you're interested in participating, either as an author, taking responsibility for some content areas, etc. I think we've got the opportunity to really do that, and it's unfortunate we don't do that because it's an opportunity for people who want to write something for the local, for our local divisional newsletter versus trying to do something, for a national publication so you can, develop an article, etc. So if anyone's interested, I will also put the details in the chat here, but if you're interested, let me know, and I will send you the details to the Zoom meeting. Everyone's welcome. One of the things we need to really do is constitute what is the board. At this point, I'm kind of at the feeling that the board is anyone who wants to participate and have a role and have some impact in the direction of the division. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and I will throw it over to Earl. And Earl is going to do a clinic for us on 3D printing details, etc. So Earl, why don't you go ahead and feel free to take it away.
Okay. So that should be my experiments in 3D printing screen, right?
It certainly is.
Okay. So I'm a little bit nervous about doing this because I see that Fran is on the call, and, I'm not an expert in the 3D printing at all. You guys know that I've had this printer for a couple of years, and I've really just used it for kind of coarse details, things that are hidden, bracketry, things like that. The only thing I've really done of any detail were these gondola cars for that ore loader. So I've always kind of thought about the printer being like a coarse tool and not really a fine detail tool. So if you're at the convention, Seth Newman and Richard Brennan and I did a presentation. We're working on a structure, actually a whole little mini scene for Seth's layout. And one of the signature things, if you will, for the building is this kind of ugly 1970s planter box, all this brickwork. And we looked at how to actually do that and actually make it look nice. So I did an experiment, and if you were at the convention, I was kind of showing it around. I went into Tinkercad and I did the brick planter box in Tinkercad and went and printed it out. And again, this was what I was trying to create and came up with this. So I thought, hey, this is actually pretty nice. I could actually resolve the individual bricks and the brickwork on there. The left-hand set of brickwork needs the bricks on top, but I had to get the windows in before I did that. But, I was pretty happy with the way this all turned out. So I got to thinking, if I can print bricks, what else can I print? So I've had, like all you guys, I got a bunch of projects that are kind of half finished laying around the workbench. And this was a scratch build patterned off of a fine scale miniature kit. And it's kind of been on hold because I wanted to put an interior because I had all these nice open doors, but I really didn't know what I wanted to put inside of it. So in getting ready to do the interior, I actually needed a floor and some walls and didn't want to spend all the money on strip wood. And as I've gone to different places on some of these tours and cruises, I kind of pilfer these coffee sticks. And these are actually for HO come out to typically about a 2x12, a 2x16. And, they're fine for inside for floors and walls in my era, at least. And, the things are dirt cheap and you kind of get a lifetime supply for well under $10. So I said, if I can do bricks, then why can't I do crates? So I got into Tinkercad, and this is Tinkercad Live, and I made a crate. And it's kind of, the wood frame crate with, the individual boards inside. One of the things that Tinkercad lets you do that's kind of interesting, and that's what this little orange box is to remind me, is you can round edges. You can see as I round these edges more and more, I eventually get a circle. But what I did with the crates, and I'll show you why in a minute, is I came and I just very lightly rounded and softened all these edges and ended up with a crate that looks like this. And then in Tinkercad, it's pretty easy to copy. I'm doing this wrong. Copy and paste and move crates around. I'm doing the thing wrong, but that's okay. And you can see if I come over here, I can take a crate, I can play with the sizes, I can stretch it, move it around. The reason that I soften the edges is if I have a bunch of crates all stacked up, you can actually see the edges between the crates. And then I can come in here and I can take these individual crates, I can move them around. I can come in and rotate them around and tinker, and the printer will print all of this. This little green thing in the back here is just kind of a something to bond all of these crates together. You know, one of the things that the 3D printer doesn't like to do is stop and start printing. If you look at these three top crates, they're kind of crenellated, and the printer has to start and stop the filament. And usually you get some artifacts and things like that that don't print too well. So the little green box in here just binds this all together and gives me a one-piece print. So once I've got the crates designed, and this is an older set of crates, I can just go ahead and print them. The nice thing with Tinkercad, with being able to go in and play with this, is I don't save any of the old crate drawings. Every time I print crates, I come in and make new ones. So I don't have the same box of stacks of crates every time. And here they are printed, and there's a little rough edges, but again, this is way zoomed up, and from looking inside, these things actually turned out really well, and they don't look like everybody else's crates. So I was pretty happy with that. I also had a project on doing a signal tower. So this is the base for a signal tower, and I wanted to put an abandoned little tower on top. And I said again, okay, if I can do crates, can I do clapboard siding? So let's give that a try. So I came up with this drawing, and I wanted to print the signal tower, all four sides, all as one big print. So, and let me get to a different file here. So this is my little test print with clapboards. And again, like in the crates, I can take these boards, I can move them around, I can rotate them, I can do all kinds of things. And one of the things I did is I kept the board ends, you can see over here, the board ends a little bit separate, because I really wanted to show off individual boards. So this was my little drawing that I showed you. And here it is when I printed it. And you can see that the printer doesn't really like these posts in the corner. Again, these were printed standing up because I wanted to print a four-sided structure all at once. And what I did actually is just put a hole in here. I'll show you the next slide, and didn't print these, but it was interesting experiment to see what the different print qualities came out to be. The left-hand one is the draft mode, and you can see it's okay, but all these board ends came out kind of really yucky, and they got better and better as I went to the higher resolution, but then you had all this stringing coming along. So once it was all printed, this is kind of what I had. And I had a lot of artifacts I had to scrape off, and I'm kind of unsure about the print quality. And you can see this kind of negative space in the corner to put a 16th inch square corner trim. So the jury's out on this, but it was an interesting experience. So then I got to thinking, once you start making things, you start thinking about other uses for it. And one of the things that I've always liked from Bar Mills is they've got some cast sidewalks. And I said, if I can do a brick planter box, then why can't I do a sidewalk? So I came in here and I used kind of the same bricks that I used for the planter box and just stacked them up and made a sidewalk. And I wanted to print it vertically because, again, the printer doesn't have to start and stop to print the face of each brick, which is what would happen if I had it laid down on its back. I was just assuming that the starting and stopping would leave a really rough texture with a lot of artifacts. And you can see in the drawing, I've moved some of the bricks around manually because each of these bricks is an individual thing that I can rotate and turn, things like that. And this is my first print, and it actually came out pretty good. You can resolve the bricks. There's some artifacts at each edge, but it really wasn't too bad. And then I came in and said, okay, well, I really need a curb, so I did the curb. I left this big circle here. This is how in Tinkercad you make a hole. So what I did is I took a sphere, made it a negative thing, merged it with the brickwork, and it gave me this depressed thing, right? Because no brick sidewalks are flat. They're flat for the first month or two. And after a while, the bricks really undulate. And I was doing the undulation by manually moving each brick. And that got to be a pain in the butt, frankly. So I said, what if I just, put a negative space in there? And this is that sidewalk printed. And you can see over on the left side of the bottom one where that negative space was. And even though the tops of the bricks are curved, it doesn't really show up too much. And there's some printing artifacts here on the front curve, but that's okay. So again, I thought this came out actually pretty good. I kept space between the bricks because I just wanted to see how things looked. I'm going to go back and try less or no space between the bricks. But I just printed this standing up and it came out great. And I had another print I had lined up because I had been assuming that printing this brickwork flat was really going to make a mess. So I said, well, I'm going to print it for you guys to show you how bad it turns out. And I don't think it turned out all that bad. So the top is the sidewalk printed vertically on edge. The bottom is that same sidewalk printed flat on its back. And you can see there's artifacts in there. You can see some stringing. I didn't clean this up. This is just spray painted right off the printer. But, the bricks look kind of crumbly and broken up and twisted a little bit. So I was actually pretty happy with this. And here's kind of a shadow view that shows it up even more. So actually, the brick tops came out flatter on this than it did with the 3D print vertical version over here. So I've got a project coming up for an old time building that has kind of a garage, and usually I've done wooden floors. So I think this garage is going to have a nice beat up looking brick floor.
A quick question, Earl.
Yeah.
Does printing it vertically take less time, more time than printing it flat, or about the same?
About the same time. It's about the same time. This is, the 0.1 mil resolution, and I think this takes about 20 minutes to print. So it goes pretty quick. And I've got this finger joint at the ends, which I really don't need because I can make this arbitrary length. I don't have to have interlocking pieces. And just like that planter box, I can do curves and everything to exactly fit whatever I need. But
The
Yes,
interlocks are good for corners, though.
I'm sorry.
The interlocks are going to be good for corners.
Yeah, but I can go into Tinkercad and I can make my own corner and, and interlock the bricks if I need to.
Yeah, but
But
you'd have to print that then horizontally, like the lower one. If you had an L corner on it, you really couldn't print that vertically. It'd be challenged probably.
yeah,
So
you can print to some degree vertically, but yeah, it's more better if I can do it flat, and that's why I tried it flat. So, I don't know,
so
what do you guys think? Do you like the bottom set of bricks?
yeah, so just a couple other questions. Did you do a backing that's a solid backing with the bricks on the backing?
Yes,
Okay,
there's
yes,
about a millimeter thick backing plate.
yeah, so there's a backing plate there. So, the other question that it might be worth trying is trying ironing on the top.
Right, I haven't tried that.
And that might, that because that smooths out kind of any, because it's kind of like a toothpaste tube. So you kind of get the lines from the toothpaste tube of the
Yep,
printer,
yep.
and the ironing just wipes everything with the head hot and kind of cleans it up. But yeah, that looks great.
Yeah, I was actually pretty impressed. I like how crumbly the bricks look.
Yep. No, that's good.
So that's kind of where I was with brickwork. So I will be printing some more thing, and I wonder if Fran is chortling at me right now because I'm sure he's been through all this and done all this. But
Not at all. This is fantastic. I'm impressed, and I like your approach to it. I couldn't pick from which one I like more. I'd probably lean a little bit more towards the bottom one here with the stringing and all on it, because that'll clean up easily, and the brick edges and corners and all are a little more
a little more weathered. Yeah, I need to come back and I'll clean all this up. But again, this was just hot off the printer, and pretty happy with it. So I also been playing with some concrete stuff. And again, this is more here's what I've been modeling as opposed to a formal presentation about how to do something. There's a bunch of guys on YouTube that do military dioramas. And usually they're like 1/35th or 1/48th scale. There's a guy I've been watching, he goes by the moniker Night Shift. And Central European guy, and did this base for a tank or something like that. And this is his version of concrete. And I really liked the way it came out. If you get a chance, look at some of his videos. He's scary. The first time I saw what he does, he puts together his diorama with the foliage, the rocks, the ground cover, takes a can of black spray paint, spray paints the whole thing black, and then comes back with an airbrush and starts painting all of the details. So the black is kind of appreciated, and then it gives him the shadows, I guess. Then he starts adding all this color. Guy's incredible. So I had a concrete project, and what he does is a lot of washes. And I thought, okay, let's see if I can kind of do some washes. So I got my jar of joint compound and some palette knives from Michael's, and along with all my drywall tools, and made this area. The interesting thing I tried with this, I really didn't care about thickness being consistent, and I wanted to have some undulation. So I defined the area to be printed with masking tape. So I just put down masking tape like you'd mask an area to be painted. I spread drywall compound over the whole area and came back with a really wide, like 12-inch wide drywall knife and smoothed it out. And while the mud was still kind of wet, I just pulled up the tape, and it gave me some really nice, pretty clean edges, as clean as I wanted for concrete. And then you got a nice smooth surface, right? Which I don't want. So I came back after it dried with a knife and also a wire brush. And I mean a heavy duty wire brush like you'd use to take rust off your muffler or something, and just beat on the concrete. And you can see I got all this nice spalling of the concrete, and yeah, it really looks kind of beat up, and that was my goal on this. So
So
I came back. I'm sorry, let me go
Was
back.
the spackling dry when you hit it with the wire brush? Was it totally dry?
It was totally dry.
Okay.
I thought if it was still wet, I would just gush it around, to use the technical term. So here's kind of a finished view. I came in and, tried the washes. I was marginally successful, and you can see there's some splotchiness. And I would put a wash on, see how it looked. If it didn't look right, I'd take a paper towel and kind of try to blot it up and move it around a little bit. I think what happened is I started with the wash. I let the wash dry for a few days and then came back with more different color washes. He'd been using like an umber as opposed to a black, which I thought was more rich, had a richness. But I ended up pulling up a lot of the paint underneath. And I think what I needed was a more solid waterproof base coat to put the washes on top of. So again, a work in progress, but once everything was in, it kind of looked okay. So now that I knew a little bit about washes, we're going to go off to Seth Newman's layout. Remember the Adams family? Remember Thing? Well, we got Thing to help us on this project. So he had painted the concrete, and this is again that Sims area from that building I started talking about at the onset of the presentation. And he just painted it real quick for the convention. It has a really thick coat of gray craft paint on top. So what we did is took a airbrush, this is one of those little cordless airbrushes, and wetted the whole surface, and then started putting on washes. There's an area that needed to be rusted. We wanted some variability in the color of the concrete. And the trying to do a random coloration in a large area is different for it to be random and not look splotchy or not look contrived. So we wet it down, then put different levels of washes on, and kind of ended up with this. And you can see the brush marks in the top section. So there's some work, but it turned out reasonably well for a first pass. This is an area where some dumpsters are going to go, and the ground is supposed to be rusty, and it'll all be colored with chalk also, but we really wanted to try to get some shading underneath and some variability of the colors and not have soft edges, because sometimes even when you do chalk, you end up with hard edges that are hard to blend out. And I think some was pretty reasonably done well. And we wanted also to have splotches where the trucks came and dropped oil. So that's still kind of a work in progress. So that's kind of what I had today, other than share this picture with you guys again who didn't see it last week. I did that little travelogue, if you will, a few weeks ago about going up to Sutter Creek and visiting the foundry. So this is a view inside that foundry in Sutter Creek. It's a overhead belt drive for all of the machine tools in the foundry, and just an incredible place. So with that, that's what I've been working on for the past couple of weeks. Bill, back to you.
Well, thanks, Earl. Any other questions for Earl? Comments, thoughts?
That's great.
I'm just going to say, painting concrete has always been a bug. I've got a huge retaining wall that I've built for my Port Costa, and getting that right color, I still haven't done it, and I'm really interested in as much more going back and redoing it.
Yeah, it's hard. They say concrete is no particular color, and it's not. And I've been watching these videos, these guys that color concrete, and I still don't have a color that I like. If you watch Jason Jensen on YouTube, he uses a color called cocoon, that you buy from Michael's, and it's kind of similar to the old aged concrete that Floquil used to put out. And that kind of gives you that beige kind of warm color. And we use some of that in that the slides from Seth, along with some raw sienna to try to put the rust in, but
Yeah,
I still
I've got-
don't have a good color.
I've got pictures of the remains of that wall. And I've been trying to match it, but I've got to re-engineer it back to what it would have looked like in 1950, which is sort of, you got a unaged concrete.
Yeah, I just hate to paint everything the same light gray and throw a wash of black on it.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the guys use oils and streak things with the oils, and I've got the oils, I just haven't had time to sit down and play with those. But I think,
Definitely good stuff. Quick question about your crates and the green binder you use to group them.
Mhm.
How does that print out, or does it print out, and how do you get rid of it if it does?
it does print out, and it's in the back of the crates. It's like against the back wall, so it's only a third of the crate thickness or a third of the crate depth. So once the crates are printed and they're in a building, you kind of really don't see it.
I see.
But otherwise, you end up with 3 separate stacks of crates, and then it's just hard to deal with. If I was doing highly detailed parts, then it's a resin printer and you can do the individual crates, but it gets back to what the printer does and doesn't like, and the printer doesn't like starting and stopping the filament, and you kind of saw that on the sidewalk a little bit. Bill, back to you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I was looking. There's one I found it's something stone. It's like castle stone or something like that in the Krylon with a little plastic top that's kind of more formed.
Mhm.
You see it. It doesn't have a lid on cap on it. You see the plastic top and hard. And if you go into Home Depot, and I thought it really came very close to concrete, kind of that little bit darker concrete, and so as a spray paint, because I was finding when you're doing, especially if you're doing things in O, spray painting works pretty well, as a base coat, and then you get something that's not water soluble for washes. So
Yeah, we thought about that too, but this was inside an area that spraying Krylon probably was not politically correct.
yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, you have to be able to take things outside to do that. So well, good. Thanks, Earl. Really appreciate it. By the way, if anyone has something similar to this, I mean, I think Earl took about 30 minutes, maybe 25 minutes. If someone has something similar they've done and would like to try doing a little presentation on it, I hesitate to use the word clinic. I think sometimes the word clinic becomes a little daunting. So, just put a few things on slides and talk about something you did that you thought went well and you think people would learn from. It's a great way to have, I think, for these little Saturday morning things to have something. We're also going to, like I said, we're going to try to get some of the convention clinics over the next few months, see what we can get for next week, and then probably after August as we go into September. So, um, anyway, so again, anyone raise your hand if you've got something you're proud of. Yes, Joyce, go ahead. You're muted, by the way. I muted everyone because background noise is always a bit challenging when someone's doing a presentation like that.
At some point I could put together a little, I don't know, 5 or 10 minute presentation of my promontory party.
That would be great. You can do that if you want to do it for 2 weeks from now. Do it for 2 weeks from now.
I'm swamped this summer.
Okay. Then shoot for the fall and just let us know on a Saturday when you're ready and we'll schedule it. There's nothing formal about this. It's just kind of, I thought it was fun to have something other than just a kind of a social meeting on Saturdays, have a little bit of content and information. So,
It's just one question. Did you record your present thing on doing presentations?
You mean the PowerPoint thing from
Yeah.
last time? It's recorded. It is up on the YouTube channel as the meetup. I quite frankly just haven't done, and I wasn't sure whether I should or not, but I probably will. You know, I've been also doing those kind of as an e-clinic and putting them, there's a playlist of e-clinics. So if you go to the YouTube, here, hang on, this one's not up there yet, but it will be. Let me put it that way. Hang on.
You know, that whole suggestion you had about storing photographs in PowerPoint was fantastic.
Yeah.
And let me
I
pull.
used to do, technical presentations at work, but I haven't done one in over 10 years. And
Yes. Yeah, so if you go in here, if you go into the YouTube channel and you click on playlists, the only playlist is the e-clinics. And if you click on view full playlists, these are all of the e-clinics we've done over the last, 3-4 years. And like I said, so if you there, and I'll put Earl's up there as well. So, and by the way, if you do something on here, unless you tell me not to, I will go ahead and put it up there. So, you can see, each one of them and go back and look at them as a video you can watch. So they're actually up on the YouTube channel.
yeah, I keep forgetting about the YouTube site.
Yep. Yeah, it's go ahead and if you, one of the things is, if you have a YouTube login, if you go to YouTube and you go there, you can just click the subscribe button, and that way every time I put a YouTube video up there, you'll get an email notification that it's up there, whether it's the meetup videos or the e-clinic videos.
For YouTube, so
But yeah, that's kind of the repository.
okay, thanks.
Cool. Well, I guess we'll say that we are in the coast modeling section of the of our little meetup. So kind of, if anyone has a something they'd like to talk about, show us your modeling, go ahead and feel free. Somebody has to have modeled something.
Well, with this today, I thought I'd show a couple things I'd printed.
Hang on,
One,
there we go. Yep, I got you.
one is a small crossing shed for gate watcher. And
So
then
this was printed in a resin print or a
yeah. No, it was 3D print using the squirt method.
oh, using filament. Yep.
Yeah. And then I have a motor car shed that I printed.
Cool.
So Ken, is that clapboard or what kind of siding is it?
Clapboard.
Okay.
So those are just two I had.
So Ken, when you do those things, do you put the results up on Thingiverse?
No.
Because one of the things that's kind of interesting is, some of these things you can kind of distribute them. And I know Thingiverse, I thought about trying to do something, but I think if you put them up on Thingiverse, that's a great place to put them. I try to put most of the things I do that I think people might like to get and replicate up on Thingiverse. Of course, it might be interesting to see your items. I've actually seen one thing I did show up on eBay being sold by somebody. So it was a holder for an NCE cab, and happened to see one on eBay and said, gee, that looks familiar. So
Yeah.
on the other hand, I don't want to run a business trying to sell $6 cab holders.
I have some things up on not that I personally put up on Thingiverse, but we developed models of the Southern Pacific 73 SC -1. That's the whaleback tender, the small 70,000 gallon whaleback tender. And those are up on Thingiverse that can be looked at and manipulated. And I think you can change them to O scale if you need.
Yeah, you can generally scale things in the scaler. One of the things the scalers let you do, the slicer, excuse me, lets you do is scale things. So you can import an STL into the slicer and then you can scale it in the slicer. So, if you import something that's HO and you want to scale it up to O scale, the ratio of 48 to 87 will let you scale it up by that percentage. And then the whole thing will get larger on the print bed. The only challenge there is kind of whether detail parts and things scale and replicate the same way, but basic shapes it works pretty well for.
I know if I were doing it in O scale, for instance, I might separate out some of the parts that are done in the full in an HO printer, so all as one. I would make them like the water cooler as a separate part and things like that.
Yep.
Now, I have one thing that I did want to show. In the last 4 weeks, I've sort of been sitting here at my desk for the most part because I can't walk very much. But I managed to finally complete if we can get this, I can get this camera over here. I got to turn off the background. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, and there we are. How do I turn off background quickly?
Just click the little up arrow next to the video at the bottom where the little up arrow and it says background, and then you have to choose no background.
Well, I'm sorry, we're under the more?
If you look down at the bottom of the Zoom screen where it's got the microphone and the little camera that you click to turn your microphone off and mute, next to the video, there's a little up arrow thing.
Okay.
Click on that. And if you click on that, it'll say choose virtual background.
Yeah, I know. I've got it just says blur my background. Oh, doesn't say
Yeah. Go to get the video settings. Just go to video settings and it's
Yeah,
got
you go to video settings, you can find it in there too, where it says background and effects.
video settings.
Yeah, click video settings, and it should open a window. And one of the things should be backgrounds and effects.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Certainly.
Let's see if I can just video, and I think I've got it off. Okay.
There you go.
All right. Well,
now you gotta turn your camera back on. I think you accidentally turned your camera off too.
Yeah, unfortunately, the resolution is not going to show what I'm doing. Oh, shoot. This does not show good resolution for close-ups. Okay, I'll just have to describe it then. What it is I have been working on putting a local-fi receiver controller.
Yep.
In a 1998 version, model power P2K PA1 unit for Southern Pacific to create the early PAs that were used extensively on the Western Division between Oakland and Sacramento. Actually, they were used for the trains to Portland and Ogden and the San Joaquins in the early 1950s. In any case, the wiring a decoder or type device shouldn't be a big deal, except that I was having a problem with trying to connect theoretically, how to connect the all of the components in a way that I could actually take the connections apart if I needed to. Fix a wire or something like that without having to unsolder them. And I came up finally with using nano connectors, and which is are tiny, very tiny, they're no more than this long. Parts, and you can buy them for very cheaply in strips and just cut them off the strip. Getting the right male and female parts and it finally I watched a video and I saw that the real key was that one end of it did have to be soldered. You have to solder the wire to one of the ends of the connector, and to do that it took a little bit of setting up a jig so that I could hold it steady, but it worked. And I now have the PA and an F series FAB running under Locofy. And after a bit of hassle with my Wi-Fi network, I actually have both of them available to me to run separately and individually. It does work.
Cool. That's good. Anybody else got anything they'd like to talk to? Gonna be a hot project out there. So let me try to show one.
Hey, Phil,
One-
let me share my screen again real quick.
Cool, go ahead. Feel free.
So we were talking about corners just a little while ago. I was kind of
Right.
playing while people were talking. So doing a corner for the brickwork actually came out pretty well, just from a real quick kind of playing with it, getting the bricks to merge and things like that. So I could obviously do an arbitrary shape sidewalk pretty easily. And probably would look at trying to round this corner and all that, but that takes a little while to set up a negative mask in Tinkercad.
Yep. Yeah, and if you wanted to interlock them, you'd have to do them individually interlocked.
Yeah, but they
at
would
the
have,
edges.
but the old guys, they would have cut the bricks, and I haven't, I'm just kind of playing with this, but you can see they would have cut the bricks at a 45, and
Yep.
the bricks are kind of cut at a 45, which is the way they would have been done.
Cool. So I show one little project. This was a project for the at the layout in Pleasanton, where actually two projects here I'll show you. One is some lights. We decided to do colored lights and actually did a 3D printed light frame that holds a colored gel, uses a 5-watt 12-volt LED light in the back and holds a colored gel. And that introduced a problem. We have a place where we use opto receivers to reverse. So you've got a trolley system where the trolley goes back and forth and it opto reverses. Of course, when you turn off the overhead lights, you lose that. So needed to make something that looked like a light, looked like it could have existed as a light stand, but would actually provide that. So let me go ahead and share this. So this was an attempt to build that. So these are some 3D printed pieces. This is a cross piece. And you'll notice when it was designed, one side, it has a groove cut in it.
You're not
Coming.
sharing, Phil. You're
Oh, I
not.
didn't hit share yet. Sorry. There we go. So, so basically this is these two pieces are mirror images of each other, and they have, you notice, a groove cut out to run a wire from the center out. And this is an LED, one of those little single LEDs that's on some wires. So you'll notice each side has one. This is the base, or the tower piece, the pole. And then this is a cap piece. And if you notice on the cap piece and the pole, they've got holes drilled in them. And those holes are also drilled through these pieces so that you can assemble the whole thing with some wires. Find that with these 3D printed things, when you start putting multiple pieces together, you can do really accurate location holes and throw a little piece of brass wire in there, or a little piece of actual copper wire, and wire them together. So you can see how this is designed. It's got the groove is on both sides, but you just glue the LED in with a little ACC on one side. And this is kind of the top and the pole without the poles in between. So this is kind of assembling it. And this is another picture of some lighting. I'll talk about that. What I wanted to do is show you this is basically what it looks like when it's done. So there's LEDs here, and they shine down, and it sits between the tracks. It goes through a hole, and gives you enough light when you look at it from across the room, because clearly you're looking at it from here mainly. It actually kind of looks like a light fixture. So now that's an O scale. I assume you could do something similar in HO, probably produce some things. Again, that was done on a filament printer, and it's all done. If you look at the prints, when you print things, let me share again here for a second. When you print these are all printed. They're printed this was printed upright, and this little piece that goes in here is actually a separate print. So this prints as a single thing with the bed down here, prints all the way up. This prints with the bed here and kind of the cap piece. And then each one of these are printed with this side down on the bed. And so you get the nice rounding on the tops. So it actually turns out it's pretty easy. It's kind of reasonably easy to take a shape. It's a little easier on O scale, obviously, because it's larger, but to take a shape and kind of cut it in your mind and print it out and then put it back together and have a nice completed part.
That's pretty good off the filament printer.
So I'll show you these. So I was going to put these in a presentation, but I didn't. Hang on, I've got to get to the right place. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Actually, I'll show you these. These are so these are I'm going to do it. I'll actually try to do probably one of these, just like Earl did, a 15-minute. These are my trial light fixtures. So my layout's in a room that's got 9-foot ceilings, and I didn't want to put a drop valence. It's a fairly large. Was an X game room, and the modules actually stick out in the middle of the room. So putting a drop valence with fascia boards and that would have really constricted the room. So what I've decided to do is do ceiling based lighting. I went and looked at doing track lighting, and to do 2 rows of track lighting with the number of heads I had was going to cost about $2,000. So these little things here, these are 3D printed light fixtures that has one piece that goes to the ceiling, another piece that holds the light, and there's actually a lock ring back here behind. And these cost about $3 each, these little 5-watt fixtures. The ones I bought are 2,700 Kelvin, so they're kind of soft white. And the idea on the ceiling is, this is the test setup with a board, is you mount 2 of these things in the center here, they have places for 4 wires. So when I get it installed, there'll be wires, basically a ground wire and 4 circuit wires running between these. And then the lights will connect over to them with those vampire taps. And so you'll be able to actually have nice lighting on the ceiling. And the total cost per head is about $5. So a lot less expensive than doing than doing track lighting. Anyway, that's kind of the level of the lighting. You really can't see it very well. But anyway, another project. Oh, here's
Phil.
see if I've got one here that's let me show these. These are the ones we did for Pleasanton. And I should take some pictures at Pleasanton of, hang on, I don't know if I shared the right screen. Let me share the right screen. So this is the same kind of thing. This is a 50-cent cereal bowl from Target with a 3D printed ring here that's got a place to clip on a gel. And again, same design here, basically holds the light with a little clip that holds the light in place. But instead of having these just attached to the ceiling, there's actually, this is one piece here, there's another piece here, and then this allows rotation. So you can get basically, rotation movement this way, back and forth, and then up and down. And these are designed to mount them to the wall at the top of the viewing area and in Pleasanton. So that's kind of what they look like with the lights on them. So this is a nice way of adding gel lighting. I'm going to put a few of those in my home layout. So you've got the capability of going to blue light, which, blue light was Hollywood's way of simulating night in a movie. So it kind of creates a nice scene. We've actually been playing with it. The one challenge is you realize very quickly when you do that how few of your buildings have lights in them, and that you need to put more lighting on the layout to make it look interesting when you turn the lights down. So kind of makes you get focused on that. Oh, and I guess the last thing I'll show, and I need to go work with Seth on this. We're going to put it up on Seth's site. These are those light picks we talked about a while back that we're doing. As they say MRCS now, they're on Seth's, and we're actually going to do 3 types. These are for operations for uncoupling. One type with a skewer. This is just a traditional bamboo skewer. Seth likes the a number 16 tapestry needle. So these have a number 16 tapestry needle. And these actually have on the end a dental pick, which is that little fuzzy thing. And these work really pretty well. The cool thing about this is with HO, it's really easy to get the end of the pick right down into the couplers between the coupler arms. It makes it really easy to uncouple. So hopefully in the next week or so, we'll get those up on Seth's site so they can be ordered if anybody's interested. We did some operations in Orange County on the Orange County modular guys. They set up in the freight room at the Santa Susana depot, and it's really not very well lit. And turned out it was almost impossible without having those. The folks that were there operating all just took to them like fish to water to be able to see how to actually uncouple cars when you're doing switching. And that's all I have. Anyone else? Something interesting?
I've got some of those dental picks, floss things, and
Yep.
they do work.
Yep. Yeah, they work really well. Well, the nice thing about this is you can also see where to put them. That's always the challenge. Well, I will say I have to go to the fairgrounds, because the Alameda County Fair is open and we're running the layouts. So unless someone has something exciting, we may just call it a day.
One announcement that has to do with 3D printing, and I just saw this today in a newsletter from Model U 3D from the UK, and they do scan photo people in costume and then 3D print them.
Yep.
For the very large scales like LGB scale and G scale stuff, they're now offering to print them in colors.
Wow.
Yeah, some of the new 3D printers have like you can input 4 different color filaments and it'll switch between the colors.
Yeah.
I don't know how useful that is for us, but maybe other people find it useful.
Well, they look good for large scale. For HO, I think we're a little ways off.
I can see it being good for like a garden layout or something too. You can do a different color roof versus body and have it color fast.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I think Model U does is they also sell some of their figures as STLs. So you can actually buy STLs. And one of the guys on New Tracks talked about that, and he said what he'd done was gotten some STLs. And he said what you do is you basically put them into the slicer, and in the slicers generally, like Cura, you can invert the image, you can mirror the image. So if you've got a figure doing this, it's really easy to mirror it and have it doing this. And then what you can do is you can scale them up and down. So you can scale them down by 5%, 10%, 20%, up by 5%, 10%. So you take one figure and you can generate 8 different poses with that figure. And what basically he said was you print them out and paint them. And if you paint them differently, and then distribute them on the layout, it's really hard to tell it's the same figure. And he was basically taking a single figure and printing, 40 or 50 figures out of it and distributing on the layout and that. So again, something that might be interesting to think about, if some folks were interested in getting together and buying some STLs and doing some printing and sharing them, it's a way of getting a lot of figures. Now, of course, you've got to paint them, but that's kind of true of anything, except if you're buying a Woodland Scenics and you're comfortable with the way it's painted, or if you're doing a custom painted figure. So.
I think there's a lot coming.
Yep.
Really, really sort of interesting. That the problem, I watched the technical bulletins to see if we're getting anywhere with nano printing to finer and finer stuff that can be done in a home printer. Not, scientific printers, boy, they're doing stuff you couldn't believe.
Well, if you're willing to do resin, for $300, you can buy a 12K resin printer. So the bed, the beauty of resin printing is there are two measures of resolution on a resin printer. The first is how much the bed lifts every print cycle, right? Because what happens is the LEDs, whatever the light plate is, it flashes on and it hardens a certain layer of the resin above it. And then that is attached to the plate, and then the plate moves up a little bit and it does another layer. So that layering and that layering is pretty fine on a lot of these printers already. Then the second measure is the size of the pixels on the bed. And there are, you can get an 8K, and now they're going to 12K beds that are the, 6-inch wide beds, 6x4 kind of things, 5.5x4. So if you start looking at the resolution, the individual, call it, for a better word, pixel resolution. I think there's a name for them when they're 3-dimensional. They're getting finer and finer and finer because, it used to be it was a 2K printer. And when you go from a 2K to an 8K, you're actually cutting the size of those down significantly. So, you're getting much better.
Small printer like this.
Yeah, this is like an Anycubic. I mean, if you go on Anycubic today, you can buy an 8K printer for under $300. And I don't know what the resolution is. It's pretty high.
I have no room for a printer, really. I have, and I can't operate it inside anyway because of the somewhat semi-field building. But I'd love to have something that I could just pull up an obscure detail part that hasn't been made by Precision Scale or anybody else for years, and be able to reproduce that and use it, that part on a locomotive.
Yep.
Or things like the details West stuff that's no longer made. And you spend a lot of time on the internet trying to track down those details.
Hey, Phil, do you have any experience or knowledge about some of the new water-based resins coming out for those printers?
No, almost have to ask Fran.
And I see he's off the call, but
Yeah,
I've seen those coming in. That's kind of an interesting thing to be able to print maybe
Yep.
inside and not smell up the house.
yeah. So, for example, this one here. So this is a 12K 11520 resolution. Now this is a fairly big printer. It's 200 by 218 by 123. So that's 8 inches. That's about 8 inches by 8 inches as the print space. And I think it's 219. So, if you're willing to go to resin and deal with the resin, and you got to talk to Fran, because what he'll tell you is that when you do resin, anything you wear will get destroyed. Wherever the printers are located will get destroyed, and it's very messy. But the resolution on this is pretty amazing, the detail resolution. So, we're getting to a pretty interesting place with those printers that you can buy. Like I said, they're for $200 to $300, you can buy, it's $200 to $300 for the printer. And then if you want a washer and curing machine, because, after you take the print out, you've got to wash with alcohol and clear off all the excess resin. And then you've got to do a cure to completely cure the resin, or you can put it out in the sun to do that. But they have these curing machines. So that's another $100. So for 450 bucks, you can very easily get yourself into resin printing. So, but again, Ken, you're right. You have to have a space for it. It has to be a space where, you don't have things that are going to be terribly damaged if they get something sticky on them that can never be removed. And it does generate smells.
I mean, I live in a 10 by 11 office room. Everything
Right.
within that room, including the layout.
So, yeah, space constraints are always a challenge.
It's what we live with in California. No basements.
Yeah, but you have to have a garage. If you've ever been over to Fran's, that's where he's got his printers out in his garage. So, and you have to have a table in the garage and concrete on the ground where it doesn't get damaged.
Unfortunately, the garage is owned by the HOA, and they don't look kindly on doing things like that.
Well, cool. Well, I think we've probably gotten to a natural end. Thanks again, Earl. Big round of applause for Earl. You can hit the down at the bottom. There's a what's it called? I can't even see it now on mine. There's a place to clap. For some reason,
It's reactions.
reactions and it doesn't show up anymore on mine. Maybe it's over on other. Huh. That's interesting. My interface changed, my Zoom interface, and it's
Yeah.
surprising me.
Yeah, it was an update. I'm still finding things. For me, the React is in between chat and share on the bottom.
Ah, there it is. React. You're right. Yeah, there we go. There's the hand clap. There's the hand clap for Earl.
What that apps means?
Those are if you have add-in apps. There are some add-in apps that you can add in to the
Add in for a price.
Not
yeah,
really. It's free, but Zoom wants you to use their app rather than watch it in the browser.
right. Well, and I think they actually have some other things that you can add in as well. And they've got some work group tools now and things that we obviously don't use because we're really not a work group where you maintain things between meetings and you can have ongoing meeting notes and that kind of thing.
This is the work group I
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
for some reason, this only started in the most recent update. I think it starts to call itself Zoom Workplace.
yep, yep. But and that's trying to, what they're, Zoom kind of was used as this video meeting tool by a lot of people, and a lot of companies adopted it. And what they're trying to do is get those companies not to move to, Teams from Microsoft, which comes bundled if you're Microsoft, or the Cisco WebEx, which is the Cisco version. Those are the two other, kind of enterprise tools. Those are Zoom's major competitors in
Yeah.
the enterprise space. We're kind of the unique space of what I'll call non-work organizational Zoom, us and churches and that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
we just use it for meetings, but it works. It works. The beauty of Zoom is it works well. Everybody kind of knows how to use it, and it doesn't really cost much for anybody to use. If you're not if you don't want to buy a license, you can download the software and participate without any cost at all.
Mhm.
So
I've switched over for personal things like with family members to Google Meet.
yeah, Google Meet's another one as well. Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, well, I found that probably about 90% of the stuff that I use that I come to is on Zoom, and the rest of it is split probably mostly on Teams and occasionally on WebEx.
Yep.
No, I don't
And,
think I've ever run into a Google Meet.
yeah, a lot of it depends on, if you're in a company, the odds are good you either use Teams or WebEx. Use Teams if you're kind of a Microsoft shop.
Mhm.
If you're a little bit less of a Microsoft, WebEx, because it came from Cisco, from the data network. And then the Google is more people who use Google apps, and that I'll call them the non-Microsoft crowd.
Yeah.
So,
And then there's Zoom for the rest of us.
and then Zoom kind of as a general tool. And by the way, the Google stuff, not to besmirch, we use Google, and because when you do Gmail, you automatically get access to the Google apps and to the Google Drive. Everybody who has a Gmail account, you get a 15 gig Google Drive included in the account. And so if you're logged in, and especially if you use Chrome, it works really well. If you're logged into Chrome and you have, a Chrome account, you'll get a Drive account. So if you just type in Drive and search for Drive, it'll bring up Google Drive. And if you click, you can open your Drive, and it's a place you can store files and you can share files really easily. And we use that really heavily during the convention to keep everybody together.
Can I ask one question? I would go back to Tinkercad. Is there really a preferred browser for that?
I have no idea.
I mean, I've got both Firefox and the Google Chrome, and I'm just trying to which would be the better browser for using. I just want to find out.
I'm gonna guess that the default for almost everybody's app is probably Chrome, because 99% of the browser users are stuck on Chrome.
Yeah.
But I use Firefox, and yeah, I've had failures when trying to use Firefox with things.
I would think that, if I'm doing apps that use a browser, not just kind of a basic website, but something a bit more sophisticated like Tinkercad, my assumption that I tested on Chrome first, maybe on Microsoft second, and then Firefox. So, Chrome was probably, because just the number of users on Chrome is higher.
Firefox is because not associated with any of the mega.
Yep.
It's sort of my rebel stuff.
Although what's funny is that Firefox is mostly funded by Google, but let's not.
Yep. Yeah. And interacts with Google very much on the back end as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, my understanding, and I'm not really an expert on this, is if you really want to avoid kind of the tracking software and the things that do that DuckDuckGo is kind of the only real option you have.
I use DuckDuckGo on the Firefox.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and that,
Well, there's the DuckDuckGo in the Firefox. There's also the DuckDuckGo browser itself.
Yep.
I'm not sure what it's based on, but that's the one that I use on my phone.
The thing about DuckDuckGo is I'm getting real tired of Google search. And it never gives you results anymore. It just gives you sales options.
Mm-hmm.
And at least with DuckDuck, I usually get a 50% real result on a query.
Yeah. DuckDuckGo also tends to label the ads as ads.
Yeah. I mean, look, Google was, 5 years ago, really was good, but I'm really frustrated with it. Anytime I ask anything other than to do a spelling on a check on a word that I'm in doubt, or I want to find out where something is on a map.
Yeah, I think what you'll find is that DuckDuckGo searches use Bing as the back end rather than Google. But they do seem to be a little more useful to me.
Yeah, they've been a little bit updated. I'm not really I hate to go back to the Microsoft world of their using Microsoft tools. I've tried to avoid that since I retired, partly because Gates people are still greedy.
Well, actually, what I found is that I probably 90% of what I do now on the computer, I've been able to do with open source software, either on Windows or not.
Yeah.
So I started playing with Linux again recently, and as a result, I'd say probably my everyday stuff works exactly the same on Linux Mint as it does on Windows, because I'm using all the same software.
I used to know how to use Linux and actually before that Unix.
Yeah.
It's one of those skills that I seem to have lost. All I know how to do is grep.
It's all GUI now. It looks just like Windows, but slightly different. The only thing I have to use the command line for is an occasional install and OneDrive.
Yeah.
If I want to hook up the OneDrive, I have to use a command line program.
Anyway,
As
I said,
we're off railroading here.
all very interesting model railroading fundamentals. The
Yeah.
foundational process of model railroading. Well, anyway, I'm going to go ahead and call it, and everybody have a great rest of your Saturday. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Like I said, if anyone's got something they'd like to present in 2 weeks, send me an email, and I will put you on the agenda. Otherwise, I'm going to start looking for something else for 2 weeks from now. So,
Okay. Thanks a lot.
have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye now.